What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, joined by John Wood, the head coach of Syndicate MMA, who I was actually just at Syndicate MMA with John. And then instead of doing the interview at the gym, we both drove home and sat down to do this interview because Zoom is a great way to record interviews for you guys here on YouTube. So, John, nice to see you again. I hope you had a nice 5-minute drive home.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you
Good
about,
to be here.
so it's a busy week for you, obviously, man. You got Contender Series guys. Obviously, then you had the Sphere with Merab, and then you turn right around, and it'll be here before you know it, just in a couple weeks with Khalil. I actually want to start with Khalil, and maybe that's just because I was just there. We watched him go through some sparring. I'm going to frame this question like just super broad.
Mhm.
Alex Pereira is one of the best fighters on the planet right now. You know, he is on a roll. He's got momentum. He's got that kind of aura, it factor to him right now.
For sure.
Why is Khalil the guy? Like in your mind, it could be psychologically, it can be what he's been through, it can be technically. Why is he the guy to beat Alex Pereira right now?
Um, all due respect to Alex and his team, he's a legend already. His coaches are a legend. It's an honor to go up against him, but I just feel like I got the live dog in the race. I feel like, what people haven't seen or don't know behind the scenes is what's going to be shown that night. And just the speed, the technique, the vision, everything there in my mind and from what I see lines up to be a good night for us. I think that Khalil's getting better each fight. And what I've seen in this camp and I've seen him grow from his last fight, I just know, I feel it very, very, very strongly that it's going to be a great night for us. I just like the matchup. I like what Alex brings, that whole scary boogeyman, just like you said, almost invincibility at this point in time. He's probably, another face of the UFC that we got to go up against. That's going to bring out the best in Khalil. It really is. And when you have the best of Khalil, you've got a scary, scary thing on your hands.
When we start talking about the Merab Sean fight, I want to get into the game plan because even I know you and your guys' side and the other side, the coaches maybe didn't see eye to eye and didn't, we're kind of bickering back and forth during the fight week. But Tim Welsh has come out and said, like, great game plan. These guys came up with a great game plan. We got to tip our hat to the great game plan. With this fight coming up against Alex, and this is me being, not with an inside mind, coaching mind, like I saw that like great game plan by Merab, and that had something to do with him winning that fight. Is a game plan as important in this one, or is it more just about like execution, reads? Like, are you coming up with a blueprint to beat Alex, or are you more coming up with like these are
Yeah,
those tiny little things that we got to do to win this fight?
absolutely. There's always a game plan. And I'm very fluid with my game plans because the way I look at it, any fighter, like there's some things that you just know are going to be there in the fight. It's just things that this fighter's going to do. But every fighter, as a coach, I have to go back and say, this guy might have got better at what he was bad at in that fight, and it's no longer there. So I don't want to be training a guy for 4 months to do this, and then all of a sudden that doesn't happen, and then you see this, like the engine blows out there, and you see that happen a lot. So the game plan has to be fluid, and most of the time when I'm game planning for my guys, I give them a general basis of here's what's going to go on, and for the most part, I train them for everything. If this goes wrong, if that goes right, if this goes wrong, what we're doing and what we're doing to get done what we need to get done. So just like with O'Malley, very good fighter, very technical, very sharp, great striker. There's a lot of things there that technique wise, there wasn't a ton of openings. You have to you got to peel the layers of the onion back a little bit to get to where, okay, I think we can do this, which he's not going to be comfortable at that. And then that opens up this thing for that to happen. We're at the highest levels right now, at the highest levels, and it's a chess match. So thinking that, hey, we're going to throw this punch and it's going to land, that's just kind of a crapshoot and luck thing. And that's timing. And that's something that can't happen. We've seen it. We've seen guys train 6 month camps, world champion camps, go out or a flying knee or whatever, and it changes the whole thing. And you're like, well, that was a big waste of time on both sides, So being able to adapt, but there's always a opening. I'm not going to say weakness, but there is a lot of things. And not just I see, you see a bunch of people would go and say, hey, Alex Pereira's his striking is it's not orthodox, it's ugly, it's this, it's that. But that's the allure to it. He knows how to do that at the highest level, and that's what makes it work so well. So it's always training for, listen, we can't get into the, oh, I'm going to be able to capitalize on just this thing. He's going to throw a lazy cross or a lazy hook and I'm going to catch it. You know how many people have tried to do that to that guy and he just knocks you on your ass? So it's literally learning how to draw out what we need to draw out, how to get where we need to get without just going, oh, it's, here we do. We're just going to go do this and it works. That's great if it does, but there's a lot more to it. So there's a multifaceted game plan. If this happens, great. If it doesn't happen, we go to this. Sometimes this leads back to this, and it's just, all those things so that my fighters can make those adjustments and make those switches in the fight when something's going good, when something's going bad, whatever happens.
Having said that, and you're right, a fight can go anywhere, so you don't know where it's going. But, I think with Merab, it probably looked about what you thought it would be, like the slight bursts of chaos and Merab doing what he does. With this one, it just seems like almost the exact opposite, dude. It's going to have two guys. Khalil has already said, and people say this, and then we see what happens in the fight, but he's like, I'm not going to shoot a takedown on him. Like, what do you think is it fair for people to think, like, I picture this fight and I see two guys standing in front of one another and not really maybe throwing a ton of combinations, but throwing dangerous sniping shots at one another. Like, is it as simple as that? Like, that's the fight?
In a nutshell, yes. I believe, honestly, my gut, I think Pereira shoots on Khalil. I think he's the one that breaks game first and shoots on Khalil to try to get that takedown, because that's actually something he's done. I mean, we ain't shooting over here, I can tell you that. Like, Khalil can. It's not like we don't train MMA. It's not like he doesn't train wrestling defense, all these things. I'm always very big on, you better know how to do something to be able to stop something. So if you've never shot a double leg, how the hell are you going to know how to stop it, what it is, what's coming at you? So I always make the fighters, no matter what you are, if you're a great striker, you better know what the wrestling dynamic is, what those things are, because you've got to be able to see them coming. And if you've never done a double leg, like, and someone blasts double leg, you're like, oh my God, what was that? So you have to be prepared to drill for those things. I think Alex shoots first, but yes, I do think, I've said this multiple times, I would be shocked if this fight goes 5 rounds. I mean, someone is going out on their shield. It's gonna happen. And obviously I think I know who it is. In my camp, Michael, that I truly feel, I believe that we got the live dog in the camp, and I think that if we lose this fight, it'll be one of those, oh, geez, I didn't see that coming. Can we lose a fight? Of course, anybody can lose a fight. This is a game of inches, especially at this level, and we are fighting the world's best. But like I said, I really love how this lines up for us to have a jaw-dropping performance out there.
Yeah, and that type of fight to me is always like the most dramatic, is when two guys are kind of standing there and it's almost like the volume kind of goes down a little bit, but that they're reading each other and it's just like the one shot is going to nail it.
Oh, yeah.
So John, I saw him backstage right after Merab won, and he told me that in all of his years of coaching, that was the first day he had ever been nervous, ever. And this man is married to a retired UFC fighter. He has said he was never been nervous for a fight before the Merab fight. So this will be a good segue into Merab. But first, do you think you'll be nervous for Khalil, given what kind of fight it's going to be?
First off, I didn't say I was nervous. I said I felt some nerves, or a little tingly thing that I never felt before. So I'm assuming maybe that was nerves. No, I think that moment was just something special. And it wasn't nerves in a bad way. It was just like, oh my God, this is crazy, like with the spear. And it's just excitement. I'm very most of the time. And this was just such a big thing. And all the hype and all the eyes and all the things that were against us, on Merab and on Sean and everybody. And not a single analyst, probably you included, bet for Merab, And so it was just like, there was a moment, where you're just like, oh, geez, man, is this guy unstoppable? And then, like I said, all I did is I watched about an hour of Merab's fights, and I was like, we're totally good. We're good to go. And but yeah, that was an interesting deal. No, I don't think I'm gonna be have any of that stuff. I think it's back to, back to normal John, back to, hey, I'll have excitement for, for Khalil and for that moment. But no, I don't see myself ever getting nervous ever again. Not that I was nervous before, but excited.
I expected Merab to be comfortable in the moment, but I also said, like, you never know. I mean, you just like you just said, I mean, you've never felt nerves before, and then you felt nerves on that day, and it was like, because it's a big deal. It's this fear. Like you said, Sean O'Malley is a big time opponent. But then when I saw Merab walk out, I was like, nope, Merab could not look more comfortable, dude. He just looks like he is just carefree as can be. Can you give us some kind of idea as to like how he was during the day, how he was in the locker room? I mean, like it just looked like he had done this a million times before, and it was something that nobody had ever done, walked out to the sphere.
Yeah, and that was crazy. Like, we practice this day in, day out. You just thought, we run fight simulations, sparring in the cage, doing these things. It literally, as far as the fight goes, it looked exactly like he does, in the cage, in the gym here. Everybody's like, dude, it just looked like another training day. So we've gone over this time we've gone in there, it's happened already hundreds of times. So it's literally just making sure that the fighters know that the moment can't be bigger than the fight, like the moment of going out and the moment of, oh my God, I'm in the UFC and the sphere and this and that. And I guarantee you, same thing. I think he, felt a little like, oh, this is crazy. But when it came time to warm up for the fight, when it came time to get ready, it all just snapped and was dead on, ready to go. Everything, I just could see it. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a good night. This is it. And then after that first takedown, I was just like, this is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, I saw in some pre-fight interviews, and you said this respectfully, but it was more about your guy and who you were taking into battle. But it was like, I think that Sean will break mentally. Like, it's going to be really tough to break him physically, but I think we'll break him mentally at some point.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that happened? And if you did, when do you think that he kind of started to break mentally? Even though he had a great fifth round, but do you feel like he was starting to break mentally at any point in the fight?
I don't know if it's mentally. I don't want to say if we broke him, but it was definitely discouraged. And I think the ease of the very first takedown, you could see the fight shift after that. The ease of, he couldn't find Merab. He couldn't hit him. He couldn't get a beat on him. He was getting taken down and stepped forward. He was getting, beat up when he was getting taken down and punched. I really feel like that very first takedown kind of set the tone of where everything was going to go from there. By the second round, it looked like he was already kind of slowing down and getting frustrated. By the third round, it was like, man, do whatever you want, So Sean's a great fighter, and Tim's a good coach, and I'm sure they'll have a great comeback when he's healthy and ready to go. It's just, you never know. I never really bought too much into the hype until the UFC machine got on board and really started pushing him and made him look like this unstoppable character that was going to knock us out in 10 seconds. Everybody wanted the Ben Askren flying knee knockout. That was, oh, he's going to be done in one. There was like, oh, maybe, like I said, maybe, oh, he is this guy. But you just kind of go back and resettle yourself and reset. But he's got a lot of fight left in him. But like I said, I never believed that he was this unstoppable thing. Watching his fights, he's been tested. Like, I'll say it again. He fought Peter Yan. I don't think he won. I don't think he won that fight. I don't think it was even like, maybe he won one round. But past that, he beat up Chito Vera, in the next fight. And we didn't see that much with the Aljo fight. And that was, good punch. I'm not going to say it's a lucky punch because he timed that thing perfect. And Sean is dangerous. But I knew he hadn't been tested like we were going to test it. So that can be, being in there with somebody wrong. Like I said, I'm sorry. They're like, oh, you can't find anybody like Sean O'Malley. Dude, there's a million good tall strikers out there that are, really good at striking and timing. It was nothing we hadn't seen before. But you are not going to get him robbed and be able to train through that pace and that feeling of what he makes you feel in the fight. And listen, he's only getting better. He's still like, I think Merab's at 50% right now, and we're gonna get better each and every fight. And that should be the scariest thing for anybody. This dude is still raw. His striking's getting better. His grappling's getting better. His submissions, his ground, his rest, everything. So you're going to see a very impressive dude here, just fight by fight.
The answer to this question could be as simple as just no, and we move on. And I want to say that it probably will be, but I am curious, man, when you come up with these game plans and you're looking at wrestling a guy like O'Malley, you even hear sometimes say like, well, you heard Pat Barry famously say it in the corner one time, and he was wrong, but the point was he was like, you hear those boos, that means we're doing our job. That sometimes removing the fight and pinning some guy and holding him against the fence and doing that kind of stuff is great strategy, But
Sure.
when you're putting together a game plan and you're like, this is a big opportunity for Merab, a lot of eyeballs. Dana White's been saying they spent $20 million on this thing. Do you ever, as a coach, and this is not even just like because you're letting bravado get involved, or just like do you factor that into like some of your decision making, and like maybe when you feel like you are comfortable in the fight, like do you take a risk or something just because it could pay off in this massive way where like, hey, if he's able to finish Sean O'Malley, that like the payout is even higher? Like, what I'm getting at? Like do you just
Yeah,
kind
no,
of wipe
I
away
get it.
all that
Listen,
entertainment?
we train to finish fights, and everybody's always like, "Oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that." Well, get into a cage with another human who is just as well trained as you and is trained to stop everything you're doing. So sometimes there's openings to finish, sometimes there's not, But every day in the room, we train to get somewhere to finish, whether it's striking, standing up on the ground and pound, submissions. It really is like I want my fighters to trust their instincts enough to, when you're in the fight, to be able to, is there a path that we think to finish? Is this dude just so tough? He's defending everything. And if we keep going for stuff, we're going to end up in a bad spot. That's their decision. And that decision has to be made in the fight. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It's a really, I will say this, I never let like a situation like that go where it's like, hey, you've got to go out there and we've got to do this and do that, or you're losing your job. Because one, you don't want that kind of pressure on your fighter, and two, sometimes it's just not that easy, man. People are always like, don't leave it to the judges, don't leave. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, no one wants to leave it to the judges. I wish my guys could just go out and go, oh, and the guy falls down. That's a beautiful world, but that world doesn't exist. So we're always training. It's not like Merab was looking for guillotines and things when those options happen. If Sean gave us the neck, he would go for it. But you have a high level guy defending skillfully, and one little let up, and that fight could change. So you want everybody. We all want finishes. I want finishes. All my guys want finishes. I don't think anybody out there trains to go, oh, I don't want to finish the fight. But the most important thing is winning. And however you got to win that fight is how you win the fight.
Yeah. Last thing for you, I know that Merab wants to fight Davis and Figueiredo. I think it's going to be Umar Nurmagomedov. I think a lot of people think it's going to be Umar. So let's just kind of preview that fight. What's going to matter in that fight, and is it the toughest test, do you think, in the division? I think that's going to be said a lot in the build up to it. And then also, just for you personally, do you kind of hope that Khabib, he's kind of been in and out of the corner. Do you kind of hope that he is? And would you relish the opportunity to go to like coach against Khabib? Just give me your thoughts on that fight and what's important about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have him in the corner. If we're going to fight him, then let's have the best of the best. It's not me and Khabib in there fighting, so it doesn't really matter. But like having, your fighter go out there and perform the game plan that we presented is always is a cool thing, and hopefully you come out on the winning side. So yeah, it'd be cool to have him in the corner against him respectfully. Umar, another one of those guys, very talented, has a great last name. He's very good striking, very good grappling. Ultimately, I don't know that he's been super tested, and certainly not tested like we will test him. Sandhagen is a phenomenal fighter. I just think also too that Sandhagen kind of forgot to fight his fight in that fight. I think Sandhagen was doing very good and was very well prepared for the takedowns and the defenses, but also forgot that the other side of that is you still got to beat him up. You still got to go out there and win the fight. Defense is great. Defense and footwork and these things are what keep you from losing the fight. Going out there and attacking and punching and kicking and going for your shit is what makes you win the fight. So, he's a very, very good fighter. And yes, he will be a very, very strong test for Merab, but I ultimately think we still get the W in that one. I don't think it's going to be anything, different that we haven't seen. The wrestling, his wrestling and his timing of his takedowns is definitely something that we'll have to account for. But I think we'll be ready for it. We'll have plenty of time to game plan for it. Again, Merab is still getting better. So I think that by the time that fight comes around, you're going to see a whole new, Merab. And it's going to be a fun fight. It'll be a good one. It's a tough one. It's going to be a tough one, but I think we're going to hold on to that belt for a while.
Cool. Well, it was cool coming over to the gym and seeing, you guys didn't waste any time putting up the big old canvas of Merab celebrating the win. And who knows, maybe you'll get another one here in the beginning of October. And then you've been teasing some big news for Zhang Wei Li, potentially her next fight as well. We'll be hearing about that soon, so hopefully. So congrats on all the success, man. We'll talk to you again soon. We'll see you in Salt Lake.